Hello everybody and welcome to our best movies discussion of 2010. I'm Rob.
I'm Brendan.
And as you guys might remember, last year we did a list, but what we're going to do instead is we're going to be discussing the best and worst movies of 2010 instead of doing a number 10, number 9, and going all the way down through number 1. So this should be definitely different. And of course, Brendan, welcome back to our channel. It's been a long time.
Of course, thanks.
And when I was going through trying to pick my best movies to discuss, I noticed that for me, a lot of my picks, I don't know about you, but a lot of my picks seem to be the much smaller independent films rather than the big studio pictures. There weren't very many big studio pictures to recommend this year, at least to me.
I think this was a good year for certain filmmakers. I really liked certain, it's like I could see Coen Brothers movies, Scorsese, Robert Rodriguez. They all had movies come out this year. So that's what I was really looking forward to and what I really enjoyed. So my list is mainly filled with sort of the movies, I guess, movies that are louder and a little more energetic.
Okay, like what?
For example, like Inception was one.
Yeah.
Inception was one I saw multiple times at the theater. And of course, there's what's to say about Inception that hasn't already been said. I mean, it's probably make it on quite a few lists. I'm sure it will win Oscars for sound design and probably a screenplay or something.
Yeah, this is a movie, one of the few studio movies that I thought was one of the best movies of the year, and it's also, I think, one of the top 5 money makers of this year. And I think it's because it's, like you said, it's one of those movies where you have to go back to the theater and kind of rewatch again. And I think people, when they went to see it the first time, they were like curious about what they might have missed, and instead of waiting till it comes out on DVD, they went ahead and paid their way in to see it again. And I think that's maybe one of the reasons why it was very successful. It is definitely an interesting movie, and you do have to watch it more than once. Unfortunately, I didn't, but there's a lot of great standout ideas, and Christopher Nolan, I thought, did a very effective job as a director. But one of my best movies of the year for me was The Kids Are Alright, the independent picture that came out this past summer. And it's another movie like Inception where I kept thinking about what I watched long beforehand. I mean, this movie, to me, felt at home with some thoughts, like there's a lot of problems with families and all that, and I kept thinking about the characters and why things happen, and I thought it was a very good picture.
That's one I have yet to see. Another one on my list, sort of, I guess, going in with sort of a movie about family, but Toy Story 3.
Oh yeah,
was a big one this summer that I really enjoyed, and did actually live up to the hype.
Yeah.
Being the third one in the trilogy, and I thought. It's a terrific movie, and I thought it had one of the best opening sequences of the entire year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when
I don't talk so much about that movie because I'm sure everyone has already seen Toy Story.
And what you mentioned, the opening scene, when I was watching the opening scene, I'm like, this could easily have been a TV show where all the characters are out in the Old West. It was very good, and a lot of the computer animated movies I reviewed, Despicable Me and Megamind, were just okay rentals. This one was definitely a good movie to go watch. I think the second film is much better, but this one was just as good. And another one on my list, Scott Pilgrim. Did you see Scott?
Yes. Scott Pilgrim's also on mine. That was a terrific movie. Visually, it was unlike anything.
Yeah.
So it's like, why can't more movies have this kind of energy?
Yeah, it was great fun, and it's a nice throwback to a lot of stuff I had growing up with video games and such. The first time I reviewed it, I thought it was a little bit slow, but when I took my girlfriend to watch it, and I went to see it for the second time, it was the last screening before they pulled it, I liked it much better than I did the first time. It seemed to go much faster and definitely a lot more energy. And I think maybe that's because I ended up reading the graphic novels, and they took all 6 of the graphic novels. I think there's 6. They took all of them. They took bits and pieces out, but I think it was done very effectively. It was not choppy, unlike Last Airbender, which was choppy. This was a very good, energetic movie. The performances were all good, and I almost missed out on this movie because I think Michael Cera plays the same character over and over again, but here he's very good with that character.
He does. Michael Cera does it well, though, so I can't knock him on that. And you're right. A lot of people did not see Scott Pilgrim when it came out in theaters, so I hope they go and check it out on home video.
Yeah, definitely. It's been out on DVD for about a couple months. You got to see it.
Of course. A couple ones on my list in terms of the big action movies this year were like Kick-Ass. Which I recently watched. I love that movie. I can tell you're wincing right now, so I don't think you liked it.
I thought it was an okay movie. My problem with it was uneven, and I mean, everyone complained about the violence. I had no problems with the violence personally. It's just I thought the movie was very uneven, and I ended up rooting more for the little girl and Nicolas Cage much more than Kick-Ass. I mean, in a way, it does explain why we don't have real life superheroes. Is because they're Kick-Ass, the kid, he's not very, athletic, and he's definitely not, the fighting type. But I mean, I thought it was a decent movie. I did give it a see it in theaters verdict, but I think to me, it was not the best of this past year.
I think in terms of the action movies, it was definitely worth seeing in terms of just the soundtrack, the energy of it, and it's very funny, it's very dramatic, and for a comic book adaptation, it's kind of a lot of people seem to have almost forgotten about it since it came out. But.
Yeah, and I liked the villain, the kid villain, McLovin.
Yes,
he was very good too. Another movie I really, really liked was The American. Now, this movie is another movie that nobody really came to see. I really liked it. It's definitely not for everybody. The problem is, I think everybody thought it was going to be like a James Bondish sort of movie. But the thing is, this is a movie where it's done in like a European style. Everyone's complaining, oh, it's boring. We just see him driving around, eating, going through the forest, all this other stuff. Well, the filmmaker wants us to get used to the surroundings. He wants us to immerse in the culture of where he's at. He's in Italy. He's in a little village in Italy. He's setting up this little mission. Of course, normally, if in a lot of movies where it's set in a different country, it's just in the background. You don't get immersed in anything. You don't get immersed in the culture there. But here, the filmmaker offers the viewer a chance to, get to know the area and get to know why he's working there. It's spending time with the character. It's not a James Bond movie or an action picture. And I really like that it wasn't a typical action picture.
One movie that I liked that was a typical action picture was Machete. Machete was essentially like the Looney Tunes version of every B action movie.
And it was a great fun movie. I loved it.
It was. Walking out of the theater, it was one of the few times I walked out of the theater, I felt a movie overstimulated me and I just needed to go home and sleep. Because my eyes just felt like they had been destroyed by so much violence and hilarity. I mean, it was just one over-the-top sequence after another, and the dialogue was really hammy. It was like, see, there are horrible movies that came out this year, but Machete was the one bad movie that really made it work. Yeah,
it definitely, and that's another movie that didn't do well this past year, exactly. I mean, it was a fun movie. I loved it. I didn't get tired of it. Me and Dave reviewed another action movie called From Paris with Love, where it's like that, but I felt so exhausted halfway through the picture. There was so much action, but here, I didn't feel exhausted. My eyes kept getting glued to the screen, and I really, really enjoyed what I was seeing. It was a funny picture. I loved the scenes where Cheech Marion's the preach. Those scenes were very fun. Lindsay Lohan wasn't given much to do. I don't know if that's going to help her career much, but it was a great picture. And another great picture, Social Network, was another good movie I really enjoyed. Did you get around to seeing Social
Network? I have not seen that one yet.
Yeah, it's a weird how it's structured, but in a way people keep comparing it to Citizen Kane because it's showing him the rise, and then he kind of lets his ego get a hold of him, and he kind of loses his friends over the course. I wasn't crazy about how it was edited, because there's in addition to how he's setting up Facebook, there's which is a flashback. There's two scenes where he's getting sued, and they keep going back, and I wasn't crazy about it, but it's definitely an interesting picture to check out. And actually, they just re-released it in some theaters right this month, so if you missed it, check it out.
Another one I think a lot of people missed was The Ghost Rider, which came out at the beginning of the year, which we both said to see it.
Yeah.
And I really hope people check this one out on video. I mean, it's sort of like, it's not breaking down any doors in terms of conspiracy theory movies or anything like that, or espionage thrillers, but it's so well done by Roman Polanski. I mean, the music, I've gone back and listened to the soundtrack before me. It's very, you just going to get back in your head, and it's a terrific mystery story that you just kind of, as sort of the character unravels each part of the story, you get more and more invested. I agree with you on that. To me, when I was watching this movie, I was reminded of Chinatown, because it's like the same thing. The main character is getting involved with something that he's small. He's helping work on a politician's book, but then there's something bigger behind it. It's just like another Polanski film, Chinatown. But other than that, it was well acted. It did have my interest, and it's definitely a movie that it's been out on DVD for a few months. They gotta check it out. And one final movie that I'm going to mention that I thought was the best of the year was, going back to the beginning of the year, was Crazy Heart with Jeff Bridges. I thought that was a great drama, and the music that he plays really blends together. It reminds me of The Wrestler. As a matter of fact, a reviewer for my Crazy Heart video said, you got to check The Wrestler out. It's like the same thing. It's a very dramatic movie. He's been out on the road. He gets kind of involved with the female reporter, and it's like a family that he missed out on. It's a great picture. Talking about Jeff Bridges, one of my favorite movies of the year was the Coen Brothers adaptation of True Grit, which is just an amazing movie. It feels like I mean, it feels like westerns are coming back in a way. I mean, it definitely feels like western movies have gotten a much greater respect. I mean, a movie that came out a few years ago, I think everyone should see, is The Assassination of Jesse James, but that's a little more dramatic and ethereal than True Grit. True Grit is a straightforward adventure story, which the Coen brothers have never told a straightforward genre movie before, and they do it beautifully. All the characters are very intricate and unique, and everyone kind of talks in this very grizzled way, like almost as if they have rocks in their mouth as they're giving their lines. I mean, it's this very hard-edged western, and I really hope more westerns, you know, it'll probably start up more westerns with how successful it's been, and the Coen brothers, it just makes me look forward to what else they're going to do.
Definitely. I think we should close the video off with a movie that we kind of disagreed on, even though we both recommended it, Shutter Island.
Yes.
Shutter Island, as you probably remember, I liked it, but I thought it was predictable. I figured everything out in 20 minutes, and I felt like I was just sitting there waiting for the ending to come. Even though, for the most part, it's well acted and it looks good and all that, I just felt like it was predictable and I knew what was going to happen.
Well, I didn't want to, you know, watching a movie, I try not to get myself caught up in the destination of the characters. I just try to go along for the ride, and Shutter Island I thought was one of the perfect ones that did that. I mean, you sort of go along with this character played by Leonardo DiCaprio, and he just plays him perfectly. I think he played this character. I was much more invested in this character than I was with his in Inception. And I think if Leo doesn't get an Academy Award nomination for Shutter Island, then there's something blatantly wrong. I thought he plays this distraught man very well, and you at times you're not sure to believe in what he's saying or not. I mean, it's one of those movies where you kind of go back and watch it, and you can kind of see the threads of the ending of the story all throughout.
Yeah, and I saw that in the screening room. I think Scorsese's made better films, but it's an okay. I thought it was decent enough to recommend. So, well, we had some very interesting best choices for this year. Okay, well, that's it for our best video list, so tune in for our worst. Hopefully you'll get it in a few days. But anyway, thank you again, Brendan, for coming back to doing this video. And thank you very much for watching. Leave your comments about what you thought were the best movies of this past year. And see you next time.